Knowing Panasonic's video chops, I was pretty pumped to test its all-new 24.2 megapixel Lumix S1. It marks the debut of Panasonic's full-frame L-mount system that should help it break free from the limitations of the Micro Four Thirds system. Packed into that big rugged body is a lot of technology like subject tracking autofocus, 5-axis in-body stabilization, lots of dials and buttons, the clearest EVF on the market, and 10-bit 4K video. On paper, it should match or beat its rivals from Sony, Nikon, and Canon. When I first tried it out in Barcelona though, I had some serious concerns about the contrast detect autofocus and high price tag. Considering that and all the new technology, is the Lumix S1 worth $2,500? Let's find out. The S1 is a big chunk of camera. At 2.25 pounds, it's nearly a pound heavier than Sony's A7 III and 300 grams more than Panasonic's own GH5. It's sturdy and weather sealed though, so it should hold up in all kinds of shooting conditions. The weight is put to good use. Panasonic wanted 6 stops of shake reduction, just like on the GH5. Considering the much larger size of the sensor, that required a big in-body stabilization system. It also has a big battery that delivers around 600 shots per charge in real-world use. I liked the big fat grip that provides excellent shooting support. The body is covered in buttons, so I could do most everything without diving into menus. When I needed those, Panasonic's S1 system was very logical and organized. I could easily find and set up everything using the touch display. You can't flip around the display, but considering the weight, the S1 is not going to make an ideal vlogging camera anyway. I found it great for regular video shooting though, thanks to the 5.7 million dot OLED that's superior to the Nikon Z6, Fujifilm X-T3 and Canon EOS R. The S1 has both a UHS 2 and XQD card slot. That will allow video shooters to use the much faster XQD slot, while photographers can use both at once for a backup. Again, this beats every other full-frame mirrorless camera out there. The S1 excels when it comes to ports too. You get headphone, microphone, full HDMI and USB Type-C, and should you need better audio, it has a dedicated hot shoe for an XLR accessory, just like the GH5. As for lenses, Panasonic has 3 to start with: a 70-200mm f4, 24-105mm f4, and 50mm f1.4. Thanks to the in-body stabilization that works in concert with stabilized lenses, you're not likely to see too many blurred shots. It can also be used with Panasonic's high-resolution photo system that allows you to take giant 96-megapixel images of non-moving subjects. The most controversial item on the S1 spec sheet is the contrast detect system Panasonic calls depth from defocus. Unlike phase detect systems that know which way to turn the lens to get sharp focus, contrast detect tends to hunt or go back and forth before it locks on. Panasonic's system is good, but I found it still a bit flaky on focus, particularly with video. Most of the time it would lock in flawlessly, but sometimes it would hunt and the image would go in and out of focus. This inconsistency resulted in a success rate that was lower than I'd like. On the positive side, I found that the S1's advanced tracking feature worked very well. It can recognize people's bodies, faces, and eyes, and even animals like these chickens here. It can shoot at 9 frames per second, but when set to continuous tracking, you can hit 6 frames per second. It does a decent job of tracking fast-moving subjects, but not as well as the AF system on Sony's new A6400. Panasonic uses contrast detect to avoid the minor artifacts that can appear with phase detect pixels that are built into sensors. However, I don't think that the trade-off is worth it, as it's not quite as reliable as Canon's dual pixel or Sony's hybrid AF. Nevertheless, the S1 has Panasonic's best autofocus system yet. The S1 uses the entire 24.2 megapixel sensor and downsamples to create ultra-crisp 4K video at up to 30 frames per second. At speeds beyond that, up to 4K 60 frames per second or 180 frames per second at 1080p, it uses an APS-C crop of the sensor, giving you less in the frame and less depth of field. Panasonic will soon offer 4K 10-bit internal and external video at higher data rates via a firmware update. You'll also be able to get a log gamma curve for better color grading. Frustratingly, that will be a paid upgrade, coming on top of an already expensive camera. As for video quality, it's excellent. Panasonic's color science is top-notch and video is extremely sharp at 4K. The new L-mount has paid huge dividends for Panasonic as the S1 delivers top-notch image quality. Low light performance is amazing, with usable photos all the way up to ISO 25600 and beyond. Images are sharp in both JPEG and RAW, and colors very accurate, especially for skin tones. The S1 doesn't have the issues with red tones that I've noticed on the GH5, which tends to turn them orange at times. Panasonic took a big gamble launching a full-frame camera in partnership with Leica and Sigma. It obviously felt it had to break out of the Micro Four Thirds mold, considering what Sony, Canon, and Nikon are doing with full frame. Is the S1 worth $2,500? I wish that Panasonic had opted for a hybrid phase detect system instead of sticking with contrast detect. I simply don't think the performance trade-off is worth the slightly better image quality. I also believe, given the higher price than all its rivals, that Panasonic should have offered updates for free. Nikon, for one, is offering a free raw video firmware update for the Z6, a fantastic perk for buyers. Otherwise, Panasonic's execution of the S1 is nearly perfect. The camera delivers on image and particularly video quality, and is largely a joy to handle and use. And thanks to the L-mount alliance, it will have more lenses more quickly than rivals. If you're primarily a video shooter, I think it's worth the money. Otherwise, I'd go with Nikon Z6.